Alright, everyone, now for the all-time classic to end all-time classics. Ooh, Donkey Kong Country. Probably one of the very first Nintendo games I fell in love with. Right up there with Yoshi's Island, with Star Fox 64. This is like one of the earliest Nintendo games I can even remember. So this game is the reason that I am as fanatical of a fan as I am of the company and the products they produced. I've gone back and played the original arcade game all the way up to the newest release, Tropical Freeze. I I enjoy this game a lot. Like even today, and considering like the amount of games that like I've bought over the years that I have gotten burned out on, stuff like Pokemon Snap, stuff like Ocarina of Time. Like there are a lot of games I discovered somewhat later that I used to love just as much that I've kind of fallen out of love with. Uh, I would say Tropical Freeze is objectively better to this in a lot of ways, but like the fact that been playing this game so much over the past couple of years, like it is like probably my go-to like Super Nintendo classic game right now. The fact that I've been going back to this one over and over and over and over again, like more than the sequel, more than most games, other than like maybe A Link to the Past, the fact that I've been playing this game like casually so much over the past couple of years really speaks to its versatility. Right, this is a game that I popped in as a kid, got reasonably far into it, and then just could never beat. And then like as an adult, I beat it in a single sitting. Like I enjoyed it just as much then as I do now. It's a game that has retained its quality, even though that a lot of aspects of it are dated. A lot of aspects actually. The visual style at the time was like extremely cutting edge, but now it still looks gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. I love the art style. I love the effects. I love the visual design. But to say that like it's cutting edge is just objectively wrong. Like again, like going full 3D alone was a massive jump. But like this was mind blowing as a kid. Like there was a very big difference in quality between the visuals of this and most other games. All right, like most of the Nintendo games were fully 2D. This had like pseudo 3D visuals. Like the characters looked like full 3D models, even though it was still a 2D game. And like the backgrounds were gorgeous, the music tracks were great. Like this was like the game for the technical powerhouse for the Super Nintendo, and I think it was this trilogy of games, the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, that really put a dent in the Sega Genesis and really put it to the ground. I've always said that Donkey Kong Country is a far superior platforming trilogy to Sonic the Hedgehog, and the fact that I have played this so much, I think speaks volumes. And yeah, I actually decided to record this retrospective specifically because some time ago I put together a top 10 levels list. A couple of years ago now, I think it was. And now I decided like it was time to go back and like start producing top 10s again. So I actually was actively, while I was playing through this game, like actively trying to like put together like what the worst levels were. Like what are the worst levels in Donkey Kong Country? And I was really surprised when I seriously like thought about my least favorite levels, the ones that I really don't look forward to playing, and the ones that like I do like playing. When I really like thought about it, like the worst levels in the game, I kind of like had this epiphany that there are fundamentally no bad levels in the game. Like maybe some of the boss fights are simplistic, well, all of them except for K. Rool. Maybe a handful of levels are like rather short, like maybe one of the animal buddies is kind of useless. Maybe there's like some nitpicks, there's no bonus world, there's no like the game is pretty short. Like this playthrough, this entire session took like an hour and 9 minutes. It used to be an hour and a half, and in this playthrough I cut it down to an hour and 9 minutes, and that was with me like feeling like I messed up quite a bit. I do feel like under an hour runs is a possibility for me now. Like all the nitpicks aside, and they really are like the nittiest of picks you could possibly make. This is the perfect game. It really is. I am not exaggerating when I say like there has never been a time where I've gotten bored of this game, where I've gotten sick of it, where I feel like I really need to play something else. Like when I play the game and I want more, I play DKC2, and when I get through DKC2, I played Donkey Kong Country 1. It's been like back and forth between those two games for years now. I've also played Donkey Kong Country 3, but I don't like that one nearly as much. I prefer 64. But like 1 and 2 really are like perfect complements to each other. Like when you look at one, you really appreciate like the simplicity and like the creativity of the level design and like the foundation that like two would built off of. Like two is probably objectively better from like a hardcore gaming standpoint, but like for someone who's never played a video game before, like Donkey Kong Country is probably the pinnacle of that kind of game design because like it manages to balance being like uh, fun to play, engaging with like an interesting art style and visuals, right? Like Mario World doesn't have anything like the barrel cannons, right? Like it has Yoshi, but like Yoshi just I don't think is as fun to use in a lot of ways as the Animal Buddies, which are a lot more accessible and a lot more easy to understand. A lot of like the things that make Super Mario World interesting, like the secret exits and the cape and like the way some of the physics work, like they're not obvious to first time players. Like I remember having to like learn how to fly in that game. Like I remember having to learn how the Star World works, or how Yoshi can fly if he eats a blue egg, blue shell. Things like that took a lot of effort to master and learn. DKC in comparison is a lot more accessible and is a lot like has this really good like feel to it as you go through it, and like regardless of your skill level. So like I've seen kids like play this level and have a blast with it, and like speedrunners enjoy it just as much. It's like it really does feel like a perfectly put together game, like one that's truly enjoyable for all skill levels. And I think one that's like aged very well too, because like I mentioned how I've continued playing this game over the years. I've noticed that like younger people have kept playing it as well. It still very much feels like this is a game that a lot of kids are get into at some point. Like whether or not they become fans of it is irrelevant. Like I'm sure that these first couple levels are like a standard for any Nintendo fan. Like even if you don't beat the game, I didn't beat the game when I first played the game. Like you end up really enjoying it, and it ends up really sticking out in your mind as one of the all time greats. And I do think like this should go down in history as like one of the all time greats. I don't know exactly how we should calculate like the best Nintendo games ever. Like I really don't like the idea of putting every single Super Nintendo game on the top of the list because I think that's kind of the default that a lot of people are doing right now. I do think stuff like Star Fox 64 belongs on there. I think Breath of the Wild belongs on there. I think like there are games on other Nintendo consoles that have pushed the industry forward and stuff like that, but none quite like uh, none of them have had the same impact on me as DKC. Like it's just the Super Nintendo. I feel like is really the console that really made people realize just how engaging this stuff actually is. Like it really gave the characters a lot of personality, and it really has a lot of variety that you wouldn't see in other games. And this is a really good example, like the minecart stage. Like this in a lot of ways is a gimmick stage, but it's a gimmick stage that actually works. Like when you see this as a kid, your mind is like blown. Like a playable roller coaster? Are you kidding me? And like it's a pretty hard level too. Like I think in a lot of ways this is probably the level that I struggled with the most as a kid. Probably because I suck and your timing isn't great, and maybe you don't know exactly how to like what's up ahead, what to expect. But like this is like the perfect gimmick level. And there are gimmick levels that don't work in this game, but like this is like a perfect example of how newer modern games can like throw out like unexpected like crazy stuff at you and just have you just deal with it, you know? Like DK64 was filled with those kind of moments, but this is like the peak. Like this is like I've complained about Donkey Kong Country 3's gimmick levels before, but like this is probably where those ideas came from. Is just like just how enamored people were with this stage, and still are. I think I still look back on this fondly as one of the best platforming stages of all time. I don't remember where I ranked it on the list on my top 10 levels list. I'm sure it's on there, but it's a great level for sure. Even now, I still make mistakes occasionally. I did make a lot of weird mistakes in this playthrough. It's undeniable. Yeah, I was thinking playing it again. I've been playing this game so much. I wondered whether like what it would be like to like try to get into speed running it. I don't think I'll like take any records or anything like that, but like just doing it for fun, I think it might actually be engaging. Like I said, just the game is just entertaining to blow through. I don't think I've talked about the music yet. The music in this game is really one of the best ever. I love the soundtrack to this game. It really does feel like you're going on this crazy cartoon jungle adventure. It's just phenomenal. Like just how many iconic tracks are in this game. There is of course like Aquatic Ambience, which I think is probably the most well-known track in the game. Everyone always brings that one up when it comes to the underwater stages and stuff like that. I've heard people like tell stories about hearing it out on the radio and things like that. It's there are a lot of iconic songs in this game, and I don't think there's a song I dislike. I really after the top 10 worst levels list, I probably should put together like a top 10 soundtracks list because there are a lot of good ones. Um, the one in the forest theme, that is just it's so good. World 3 is my favorite in general, but yeah, a big part of that is because of the music. I'm so overly confident in my abilities. I didn't even get the checkpoint. Ugh. Oh, I actually did get Winky. Okay, so that was actually something I was wondering. I had this like a little bit of a thought while I was out in public after I recorded this. I seriously was I seriously thought that I did not get Winky because I did not get Winky in Winky's walkway, and I felt as if like, is there a time where I ever use the frog in an average playthrough? But apparently I do use the frog, even though it's not necessary. Even though the frog is by far the worst animal partner in the game, I just I guess I do get on it and use it just because it's there. Um, it's been a while since I've used it on like Millstone Mayhem or whatever, but it is like all that animal partner does is jump slightly higher. In a game where like jumping higher doesn't really do you a lot of good, really. Like Diddy, uh, okay, I haven't talked about the partner system at all. So in this game, you have Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong working together to go through these platforming sections. Each character can take one hint, but you can switch between them at will, assuming you have the other one in your party. But they do have like notable playable differences. Like Donkey Kong is bigger and heavier, and he can like attack stronger enemies. And Diddy's like jumps slightly higher and moves faster. But like because of the way the game is structured, Diddy Kong is actually objectively like a way better character. Not to mention way more appealing to a kid. Like playing this game as a kid, like I always wanted to be Diddy Kong, and I got made fun of it for it actually, because like I would always switch out DK and play as Diddy Kong because like Diddy is just like so much more because he's faster. It's like so much more satisfying to like nail these platforming sections and like make these jumps and just I it's a weird thing about this trilogy that like Donkey Kong, it's a Donkey Kong Country game. It's a Donkey Kong Country series, but DK himself is not all that popular in them, right? Like in the first game, he got shafted by Diddy Kong because Diddy Kong is far more popular among fans in this game. And in the sequels, Donkey Kong did not appear at all, right? Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3 is about like rescuing him from being kidnapped. Like in 2, it's Diddy and Dixie Kong, and in 3, it's Dixie and Kitty Kong. It just doesn't make any sense. Like 3, honestly, I've always felt this about 3. I feel like 3 should have had Donkey Kong team up with Dixie Kong, so to get something a little bit different, but nah. Like we got Kitty Kong instead, who's the worst Kong in the entire series. I hate Kitty Kong. I hate 3 in general. What is with me and like skipping checkpoint barrels? That's like the second time I've done that. Okay. Like Kiddy Kong is so unlikable as a character. Like he's like an awkward looking ape who's just has nothing appealing from a character design standpoint. Like his abilities aren't interesting. I I just don't like Kiddy Kong. Like TK64 had like way more interesting characters in my opinion. I like Tiny more than Dixie. I like Chunky more than Kitty, and I like Lanky Kongs more than the Manky Kongs. That's something I don't see a lot of people talk about. Is that like Lanky Kong is related to the Manky Kongs that appear in this game that you'll see in Orangutan Gang and other levels, the ones that throw the barrels. Uh, which makes me like wonder what like the deep lore explanation as to why Lanky is a good guy, because like according to the instruction manual, Manky Kongs are actually like distant relatives of the Kong family that like backstab them in favor of siding with the Kremlins. So like it's an interesting piece of deep lore that is never really brought up or addressed, but it seems like Rare actually wanted to go somewhere with it uh, in their line of games before like being acquired by Microsoft. By the way, I can't believe I've gone this long without mentioning this. RIP Rareware. Like holy shit! From that brief period of time from 1994 to 99, maybe 2000, like they really were putting out like some of the best games ever made. You know, from like Donkey Kong Country to Perfect Dark, like a 6 year period, they were putting out like nothing but like absolute gems. You know, like in the Donkey Kong trilogy alone, like series alone, we got like uh two of the best 2D platforming games of all time, like an okay third game, Donkey Kong Country 3. We got DK64, like a great platformer, one of like the most expansive I've ever seen, with like great visuals, great animations, great characters, great level design, great art design, an incredible amount of content. You got like Banjo-Kazooie, one of the best 3D platformers ever made. You have GoldenEye, one of the best first-person shooters ever made. You have Killer Instinct, which is, let's face it, just a knockoff of Mortal Kombat. You have like all this, all this good stuff, all this crazy good stuff, and what do? You sell out to Microsoft. Well, actually, to be more accurate, like Rare sold themselves to Microsoft, and Nintendo owned 50%, like something like 49% of the company. And what Rare thought would happen was that Nintendo would would uh would buy them when they put themselves up for sale, but like Microsoft acquired them first. So Nintendo just sold their stake, and the rest is history. Rareware became a shell of its former self within years. It was shocking how quickly Rare went downhill after the Microsoft acquisition. I would argue there were already signs of it, because like Conker's Bad Fur Day wasn't great. There were problems with like DK64 and Perfect Dark, specifically how they required the expansion pack. There were problems at Rareware for sure, but like I don't think they were beyond being helped before being acquired by Microsoft. And like curiously, you don't really see a lot of people talk about that. Like whenever people talk about like Sea of Thieves, like right now, like the discussion is positive, even though that like they do nothing but shit on their fans, and there's nothing good about Sea of Thieves. Like it feels kind of like a Fortnite thing where people are only talking about it positively because of the positive because of the crossover stuff and the constant updates, right? Like they had a crossover with like Jack Sparrow for some reason, like Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know what that means for the game, but it's in Sea of Thieves. I don't know what that community is like. Like I remember when the game first came out and they revealed that there was just nothing to show for it. But anyway, I probably shouldn't be talking so much about Sea of Thieves in a Donkey Kong Country video. But yeah, World 3 is by far my favorite. I think it has like the most versatile levels. I think like essentially all of them are good. Like maybe the underwater stage isn't great, but like generally speaking, like World 3 just has all of my favorite levels. I think like I think 1 and 2 are both in my top 10 best levels list were Forest World levels. So Forest Frenzy, this stage is actually my all-time favorite. I remember that pretty explicitly. Like the ending is just something else. Da 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 da. Yeah, these games have some of the best enemy designs ever. Like they're all pretty unique and really stick out in your mind. But I think my all-time favorite are the zingers. Like I just love the bees because they're really the developers did a good job like making them look intimidating and giving them a cool looking design while like incorporating them in a lot of interesting ways. Like they feel like a real threat. I really most enemies you can just kind of jump on or go around, but bees are always just kind of like throwing themselves at you in all sorts of ways. And this stage is like a really good example of that, of just like how many ways you can you can fear the bee. Oof. Yeah, Spoonie, bees are threatening. Get over it. Oh man, is that a joke that anyone will understand? Ugh. Yeah, there's a very well known public freakout by Noah Antweiler, the spooning one, regarding bees. So, oof. Oh wait, no, isn't he like pro bee? Oh yeah. He was hyping up the bee as being a threat. Okay, never mind. It was the other guys who were kind of laughing at it, but like still, oof. All right. Yeah, so the game does tend to reuse a lot of its stage backgrounds a lot, but like each of these stages are so unique and distinct, you honestly don't even really notice it. Like this might be, I don't think the original Millstone Mayhem, the first stage that used the ruin background, I don't think that one really had the beavers chasing you. Like typically, the game does reuse some of its concepts at least once. And sometimes those concepts work really well and create like interesting levels of their own, and other times they don't really work. So I think this one is one of the better ones. Like it's not really a copy of the first Ruin stage. Like it took what made that stage interesting and kind of came up with something a little bit different. Getting chased by these beavers. Actually, I'm going so fast that you can't even see the fact that I'm being chased, but it is true. Again, this is a really good example of just how Rareware was able to reuse like already established concepts and like innovate them on interesting ways. There are a handful of examples in this game that aren't handled all that well, but it's like what I said earlier. There are no bad levels in Donkey Kong Country 1. Like fundamentally, I think if there is a stage that isn't great, like it's over so quickly that like you hardly even notice it. Like typically, like I was going through like the list of my least favorite levels, stuff like Winky's Walkway, Torchlight Trouble, Poison Pond, and Clam City maybe. I was going through all these levels, and I'm just kind of like, are they really that bad? Like the thing about Winky's Walkway and Torchlight Trouble in particular is that like they're just really short. Like in this stage has a lot of verticality. It's long. It has a lot of interesting gimmicks. Like Torchlight Trouble, in comparison, has like one gimmick where you use squawks to like light up a dark cave, but it's so like uninspired and like so boring. You just kind of forget it ever happened. Yeah, this stage isn't all that long either. I wonder, like, I played Backstage so much as a kid because, like, it has espresso, and it's, like, by far the best espresso stage because of, like, how much, like, room you have to, like, go around. It has, like, really good verticality. I, I don't know if I would put it on my favorite now. I think it might actually go on my top 10 worst list, which is weird to think about. But that just goes to show you just how good the game actually is, where you have to, like, straight up struggle to find anything bad about it. Like I have never heard anyone adequately say this game is like bad. It's just impossible to do. Like if you don't like this game, you don't like games. Period. I would say, and I would argue that's the case for like the vast majority of Nintendo's output. You know, when people like bitch about Breath of the Wild, right? I don't take them seriously. When they bitch about like Splatoon, I don't take them seriously. When they bitch about like anything Nintendo does, I don't take them seriously. This though is like so mainstream and so accepted. I don't think like it's really something I've heard anyone talk shit about ever. And it's kind of odd to think about. This might be one of those Nintendo games that just has no detractors. I've never seen anyone like try to say this game is bad. Oh, I have actually. SNES Drunk tries to say the game is bad, but he had the reach to do it. Like he had to try and say like, oh, getting 100% completion is bad, because the bonus rooms are hard to find. Well, you know what? Don't get all the bonus rooms then. That's all you have to do. I don't even like disagree with that, but does that make the game bad? If anything, it gives it replay value to like try and find all the bonus rooms. And like you'll be playing these same stages over and over and over again. And if anything, you'll like the game more because you'll understand just how much fun it is to go back to these stages over and over and over and over again. I don't know. Like it really felt like he was reaching for that one. But yeah, other than that, I can't really think of anyone who's like openly tried like saying this game is overrated or that like it's not as good as people say it is. It is like one of those all-time greats. Yeah, and one of the things I felt when I was playing this a while back is that like I wondered if like the underwater levels could be considered good because I felt like they were kind of getting in the way. I felt like they were the weaker entries in the game. Playing it again though, I am starting to like kind of appreciate them. Like much like the minecart level, they're very it's something different. You know, like it's not like the platforming you get from like a typical level, but like it's a breath of fresh air. Yeah, you're underwater, and you're taking a breath of fresh air because apparently these Kongs just breathe like fish. Yeah, there is no air meter in this game. I was so confused when like I played, went from this to like Banjo Kazooie, where like you do have an air meter. So like apparently in Rareware's world, like DK can breathe underwater, but the bear and bird can't. And like it's definitely a Rareware thing because DK does have an air meter in Tropical Freeze. One of the good things about Tropical Freeze, by the way, is that they do make the underwater levels like objectively a lot better. So yeah, when it comes time to do like a Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze retrospective, yeah, we'll be talking about that a lot, like how much better it is than this game. And like I do think that's true. Like I've been singing this game's praises, and for good reason. It's like it is one of the all times great. I think Tropical Freeze, from like a gamer standpoint, is better. Now I say gamer standpoint because I don't think it's nearly as accessible or nearly as replayable and like or nearly as iconic. But like when it comes to like pure stage design and just like some of the things it's done, it did. It is like phenomenal. It is like a phenomenally well made platformer. Probably one of the best of the new tens. It was the best in the new tens. It was exceedingly well made. A great return to form. Like I don't think the Donkey Kong Country Returns games got enough credit for like really recapturing the magic of the Rareware games. Like a lot of us, I think, felt like the Rareware era games were never going to come back ever. But here we are, and we have Retro Studios putting out great new Donkey Kong Country games. I mean, I say that, but it's been a while since Tropical Freeze came out. I don't know, like, what is Retro Studios working on? Like, people were like getting angry about them working on Donkey Kong Country Returns when Tropical Freeze came out. I think a lot of people had this misconception that they were like the cool Western Nintendo development studio, but now they've just been they haven't put out anything since like 2014. So it's like it's weird that like they went from putting out like some of the best games of all time from the Metroid Prime games to like the Donkey Kong Country Returns ones to just not putting out anything. I don't know exactly what their deal is. I would like them to put out a new DKC, but we'll see. I don't know. Like I definitely see the argument for wanting to put out something a little bit different, but like whenever I see like people like formerly at Rareware like talking about their experiences there, they're always talking shit about like, oh man, Nintendo, they didn't let us make Halo more Metroid more like Halo. And I'm just like, why would you want to make Halo again? Like you're making a Metroid game, make a Metroid game. And like I don't respect that at all. I really don't. And I think Tanabe, the producer for Metroid Prime, I think he made the right decision in like really preventing the company from doing that. And I think what ended up happening is that a lot of the people who were like really adamant about like imitating Halo, a lot of them went to work for Halo. Like a lot of them went to work on on Halo 4 and stuff like that, or 343, and now 343 is getting hit with massive layoffs, and nobody's happy with them right now. The founder has left. Um, they've had like several games to like get their shit together, and it seems like they completely destroyed Microsoft's biggest IP. So like in 2022, when this is being recorded, it feels like Metroid is bigger than ever, while Halo is completely dead in the water. It's interesting to think about. But yeah, I feel like if you're that kind of person who just wants to like imitate what other people has done, you're never going to succeed in this industry. All right? Like this game, Donkey Kong Country, like you could have easily made it like a Super Mario World clone. But what did Rareware do? They like came up with these entirely new concepts. They came up with like stuff like the barrel cannons. They came up with like the partner system. They came up with like a setting and vibe. Like it's not a Mario clone. Like people don't appreciate this enough about Donkey Kong Country is that like it could have easily just been like a very cheap knockoff of Super Mario World, but in reality they put out like a really solid 2D platformer.
I feel like I keep getting off track, not talking about individual levels. I suppose a big part of that is because like, these retrospectives are supposed to talk about the game as a whole, and I suppose you have to talk about its history and its sequels, its follow-ups, and what came before. I don't think we've talked about the arcade game at all because when I first played this, I was not aware the original arcade game existed. I did not become a fan of Donkey Kong the arcade game until I discovered it through Donkey Kong 64. Donkey Kong 64 features an in-game arcade, an emulated version of Donkey Kong the arcade game in the game that kind of exposed me to this like game from the distant past, 1981, the far off year when consoles weren't even a thing, right? The original arcade release of Donkey Kong. And like it was so strange to me to see like Mario going up against DK and like just seeing like some of the how much games have evolved over the past couple of years, the past several years, right? Like going back and playing a single screen game was like bizarre to me, and I had a lot of fun playing it. But like it also made me think about like how the game has evolved because if you think about it, that game came out in 1981, the same year as Pac-Man, I believe. Uh, it came out and got a couple of sequels, Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong 2 and Donkey Kong 3, that kind of missed the point of what made the original so successful. And then for a long time, Donkey Kong was put on the back burner. Like he was kind of like relegated to like expanded universe status. Like he appeared in Super Mario Kart. I'm sure he's had like other appearances over the years, but for the most part, like the character was in limbo for a good long while until this reboot. That's right, Donkey Kong Country, although a lot of people don't really think of it as such, is a reboot of the franchise, and I suppose it has to be like one of the most successful reboots ever made, because like nobody really this is exactly what a reboot should be, in which it reimagines the world, recontextualizes everything to really make a completely different, unique idea with an established property. So in the case of like uh, the association with Mario, they were just like, okay, we have this ape that went up against Mario. So what are we gonna do with the sequel? If we're gonna make him the protagonist of his own game, okay, he's an ape, so he starts in the jungle. So we're gonna start with like these settings, like an island setting. He's living on an island. There are snowy mountains, there are forests, um, there are ruins of an ancient civilization. There's all these things, and he's bigger than Mario, so like his enemies are bigger. They look more intimidating. Oh yeah, so we'll come up with barrels. We'll come up with these barrel canyons. Like I don't know exactly what the development cycle for this game was like, but like you can totally see the decision to make it a 2D platformer came from the fact that it was associated with Mario. So it does have that Super Mario Bros. DNA inside of it, even though it did go in a completely different route. Like I think people focus a little bit too much on like the visual style. I would imagine the artwork, and the graphics are a big part of what sold this game to casual audiences. Because the series did have a noticeable drop in sales as it went on. Like the original sold 7 million units, two sold three, and then three sold one. Like a lot of people could argue that was due to franchise fatigue, but really I think it was just because a lot of people just the graphics weren't new and innovative anymore. So like people just naturally fell off. But you know, 2 is a great game in its own right. It has like it's just as beloved as this one actually. So I would say loving 2 is like is like should be considered a badge of honor among Donkey Kong Country fans. You're not a pleb that stopped after the first game. You went on to 2, and then if you go on to 3, I guess you're a Turbo fan, someone who just like sticks with the franchise no matter what. I don't know, like to say DKC 3 is on the same level as you know, a bad sequel as I don't know, Yoshi's New Island or Yoshi's Island DS is just objectively wrong. Because there are things I like about 3. When I played it a while back, I had a lot of fun with it, but like it's just noticeably not as good. Like, if there are no bad levels in Donkey Kong Country 1, I think like about half of them are bad in Donkey Kong Country 3, and when half of the stages are bad, it just really grates on you. And a lot of them are gimmicky too, and sometimes like the gimmicks are the best ever in the series, and other times they just don't work. So it's interesting how much they actually tried to evolve the series, because 2 has a much darker aesthetic. It has a lot more it's a lot more challenging. It has like a bonus world. It has like a true ending. Like it has a lot more incentive for you to 100% the game. Like 2 is, I think, objectively speaking, a better game in a lot of ways. But like it's not quite as popular because it's not like as it wasn't like as cutting edge or innovative at the time, even though it came out like a year later. And then 3, you know, went back to having more cartoony visuals, and I think alienated fans of both 1 and 2. So like I could totally see. I myself didn't pick up 3 for a long time because like it did not look appealing to me. I think the first time I ever played it was when they ported it on the Game Boy Advance, and like they had a demo station of it up, and I'm just like kind of shocked that they would like be actively promoting a port of an older game like that. So I played like the first level, and I just don't like it much, and I think a part of that might be because it was a some of the weird changes they made. I don't think the Game Boy Advance ports are like particularly popular versions of the game. I don't like I didn't like the port of the Game Boy Advance port of this. So I'm curious just what they changed. That's actually something I don't see a lot of people talk about, is like the Game Boy versions, because there are a couple. There was like a Donkey Kong Land on the original Game Boy, which was an extremely cut down version of this title, which I've never really played, which is still surprisingly technically demanding by Game Boy standards. And then you have the advanced ports, which are just like straight up ports with like some additional minor changes, which actually came out post Rareware buyout. So I think Rareware, weirdly enough, was technically producing games on Nintendo hardware. Like I think up until like Diddy Kong Racing DS. Like again, those were just ports of like already existing products, but they made like all these weird changes and did all this stuff. So I think that's more evidence that Rareware's decline really had nothing to do with the Microsoft acquisition. That is like painful for me to say, but like if like theoretically there's nothing stopping them from putting out games on Nintendo hardware now, because it's a handheld, right? That used to be their line of thinking, is that like, oh yeah, we'll just release games on Nintendo handhelds if we want. But again, that just never really happened. Like I think we got like an original title in Banjo Pilot, which nobody talks about. I didn't even know that game existed for a long time. And like that's about it. Everything else was ports. And now we're getting GoldenEye, which on Nintendo Switch Online with online multiplayer, which I think is very exciting. I think I think Nintendo really fucked over Microsoft on that one. Oof. I I'm really excited to see that. Oof. Yeah, I think the tree stop stages are like some of my favorites. I really love the aesthetics. I really love like the setting and the idea. Like I really found myself wondering when I was playing this game, like just who lives here. Like is this like where other Kongs live? Is this like some other civilization on the island? It's a question that's unfortunately never answered or ever brought up. It's interesting kind of thinking about things like that, because there are weird decisions like that in old Nintendo games that you can just kind of go back on and just kind of like reflect on. It's just like, why did they do it that way? Like Ocarina of Time has like a lot of dark elements to it, and this has like some.
unprecedented questions as well. Like what exactly is Donkey Kong's relationship to Mario in this continuity? Is it like a new continuity? Is it like does it take place after Donkey Kong? Is there some kind of explanation for that? I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to get an answer. And it is kind of a shame. That is like one of the things I had a problem with in Odyssey is that you're gonna have a Donkey Kong themed world. You're gonna have New Donk City. You're gonna have like Pauline reappear for the first time in like 40 years. You're gonna have like all this nostalgia stuff, all this nostalgic stuff. You don't actually bring back Donkey Kong. You don't actually explain the deep lore with, uh, about how Donkey Kong went from the city to like this jungle island. Like the theory I've come up with, which I think is complete bullshit, but I guess it's kind of worth bringing up, is that like Donkey Kong's father in this game is Donkey Kong Jr. and like of course his grandfather is Cranky Kong. So like this is like a new generation of Kongs who have just kind of moved on from their rivalry with Mario. Like they lost, so just kind of had to deal with it and like go on their own adventures. It's interesting to think about because it's basically all we got, and like they can technically retcon, they can definitely could like elaborate on that and come up with something a little bit different. But I think with like the evidence we have available, that's basically what I think the story to this game is. I've never seen anyone like really bring this up, but yeah. Yeah, one of the things I've kind of I've talked about over the years as I've been playing this game is that like I feel like the game peaks like in World 3, and like World 4 is great, like the Snow World is great too, but like there is like a very strong decline in quality like after that point. Like I've always been maintaining that, but like I think I don't know, I don't want to call myself like say I exaggerated because I do feel like it is true, but like the stages aren't as good as the first several. I do think there's a noticeable decline in quality in by the factory stage and especially Shimp Caverns. It's just at this point like it feels like you've seen everything there is in the game and it's just a bunch of generic levels. I don't think a lot of the gimmicks after this point really resonate with you. You get like a couple of factory levels. You get like a new boss and a pretty lame boss, and that's about it. The final boss is great. I mean, I guess we'll showcase that when we get to it. But yeah, generally speaking, I find like these last couple of stages just boring. I found myself wanting to take a break. Like that's typically what happens. That's actually what happened last time I played the game. Is that like I actually took my time and like played for like 10 minutes a day or something, and got up to like this point in the game and just kind of stopped. I actually deleted that file so I could do this retrospective. So yeah, it's definitely not unprecedented for me to stop like after the snow world. Actually, like as a kid, that's typically what would happen is that like I would get to the snow world, like beat it or come close to beating it, and then just stop after I get to this point. And I don't know if I was filtered or if I just gave up and stopped. I feel like I did give up and stop because I remember like getting to K. Rool. I don't know if I should tell this story now, but I remember getting to K. Rool as a kid, beating him, and then he like lies down and like the fake credits roll, and I'm a stupid kid, so I just don't realize they're fake credits. So I set the controller down, and then like he leaps back up and starts kicking my ass, and I die that first time. And I remember like being so frustrated about that, like I just kind of decided I beat the game and put it down for years. I didn't come back to this until what 2010 or something. It was one of the first games I bought on the Wii Virtual Console. I would have gone back to it a long time before that if I actually owned a copy. Like what happened is my beloved mother, who has never done anything wrong to me ever, actually gave away my Super Nintendo and all my games without my permission to try and punish me for some reason. I don't know. I must have done something really terrible for her to like to completely ruin my life like that. But I I was not able to play this game for a long time. So like coming back to this game in 2010, when I actually had access to the internet and could actually like download Wii Virtual Console games for the first time ever, being able to like finally do that
being able to like finally just down like play DKC and finally like legitimately beat it, it was like a really satisfying experience, right? That Yoshi's Island, playing Super Metroid again, it was like a phenomenal experience. It's a big reason why I kind of like fell back in love with Nintendo because like for a good while there, I was out of the house more and like doing stuff on my own, like sports and stuff like that. Like I had some semblance of like a normal life. So like I wasn't actually gaming all that much from like 2009 to 2010, and then like just kind of getting back into it because of these classic games that I was able to rediscover. It was a lot of fun. It really was like uh, reuniting with a lost friend. It was just so satisfying. Of course, like I have a lot. I'd say like all my favorite games were stuff I played in that period. Like I had a lot of N64 games I hadn't beaten, stuff like F-Zero X, stuff like Star Wars Rogue Squadron, Star Fox 64. There were a lot of things I wanted to go back and beat again, and I kind of took the time to do it around that period because of this game. Like this game really made me realize just how much I really loved Nintendo. And like 10 years later, I feel like I'm kind of at that point now where I don't think I'll ever discover anything like this ever again. It's like, okay, if I like a game, I'll play it and I'll enjoy it, but it's like, what am I going to discover like in 2017 that is going to have me like play it this much for this long? You know what I mean? Like, I love Splatoon. I'm playing Splatoon 3 right now. I don't think I'll be playing it when Splatoon 4 comes out. I haven't been playing Splatoon 1 much since Splatoon 2 came out. Like it feels like okay, like when would I ever have the time to find something? Like it feels like a product of like where I was in life, honestly, in a lot of ways. Like it feels like I just cannot put enough time into something to really like see its like value as a thing. I don't know, like like its actual quality, objective quality is a big part of that, but there's a part of me that feels like a big reason I love this game so much is because of like my personal relationship with it. Like a relationship I'll never have with like any other piece of media ever. You know, I don't I simply don't value games as much as I used to when I was a kid. So I'm just as a result, like even with something objectively mind blowing like Breath of the Wild, I'm just not like as crazy about it in a lot of ways. I know that's weird to say considering how insistent I am that it's better than other games, but yeah, there's more to like a game that just is like it's objective quality. You know what I mean? Like yeah, I'm sure there are like a lot of people would argue that Yoshi's Island is technically better than this in a lot of ways. It has like more content. It has like the scoring system. It has like really interesting mechanics. Like Yoshi's Island is like really innovative platformer, and I feel like in a lot of ways this game kind of overshadowed it at the time. But like that doesn't mean that Donkey Kong Country is bad. That's actually a big reason why I have such a big problem with Nintendo fans or pretendos complaining about Nintendo Directs. Like, oh man, they didn't announce Breath of the Wild 2. It's garbage. Uh, I would I prefer having a lot of unique, interesting experiences that like people could just experience, like appreciate it for what it is. You know, like people are bitching about like all the farming games on Switch, for example. Like, do people not realize just how popular life sim games are right now on Switch? Like, do people not realize that Animal Crossing has sold like 40 million units? Do they not realize that there's a big niche for this stuff that's just waiting to be filled? That like stuff like A Story of Seasons and like Rune Factory just are not satisfying anymore? Like, do people not realize that like this stuff is really popular? It's like to say that like the farming games are ruining Nintendo Directs is just wrong. Like just because you don't enjoy them, that makes them bad. Like no, I feel very strongly about that. Like it's a big reason why I don't shit on DKC3 as much as I can because I know there are people that legitimately enjoy it. Like I know that. Like I'll make fun of people who like say it's like better than the first two games because I think that is a niche thing that a niche demographic that does exist. But like when it comes to an experience, like if you want to enjoy Donkey Kong Country 3,
Like, you should be able to do that, you know? Like, um, I don't see the point in attacking Nintendo fans for liking certain games. Here we go. Oops. Yeah, for some reason I really struggle on the stage, like in this footage. I don't know what it is. I kept dying over and over. Like I actually got through the game quicker than I normally do at like 1 hour and 9 minutes. But um for some reason I made like a lot of weird errors here. This was like I was surprised I got through the game so quickly because I thought that I messed up. But anyway. Yeah, you really have to wonder about the relationship between Neki Juniors and like the boss Neki that you see, because like there's Neki Senior, and then there's like Neki Juniors, and you're just kind of like confused about like the relationship between all these creatures. So like, do those vultures, do Neki Juniors just evolve into like Nekis? Like, are they just babies? How many of them are there? Like, are they the same creature over and over again? Like, it just feels strange. I don't know. It's anyway, Deep Lore. Anyway, this is Poison Pond. This is, I think, my least favorite level in the game. Because like the past several times I've played it, like I just get bored of it. I don't like. I feel like it's just an annoying swimming level. I think like there are too many obstacles. I don't like if I play a swimming level, I want it to be like aesthetically pleasing. I want it to be like relaxing. I just want it to be a change of pace from like what we get from the platforming. Here it's like the hardest swimming level in the game, like objectively. Like there are fish everywhere just coming at you at all these weird angles. And like I just find myself like every time playing it, I'm just like at this point I just want the game to be over because I know there aren't like any great stages after this. All I really want is to like beat K. Rool and get my banana horn back. And like for the rest of the stages in the game after this, I can just kind of breeze through them because I have them memorized. But like this is just tedious and boring, honestly. Like it's not fun. Like it's just you like dodging like a bazillion obstacles. And like fish aren't terribly interesting enemies in this game. I don't think. Like they look kind of cool, but like for the most part, you're just kind of like, okay, we're just going around them. I just oh yeah, I don't appreciate this level at all. It's just it's like it's the level I single out as just being like, ugh, this one again. I don't know if I would call it like the worst level in the game though, because like it is I do legitimately die on it and I do struggle on that. Like when I think of like bad Donkey Kong levels, like I think when I'm gonna put together my top 10 Donkey Kong Country levels list, I think what I would want to do is like emphasize just how much like game value you get out of a level instead of it's like how much you personally dislike it. I don't know. I think this one would still make the list because I don't think it's a particularly well made level, but I think it would like end up below Winky's Walkway or Torchlight Trouble, like both of which are just awful. I don't know. I feel like I should have probably spent more time talking about like individual levels. I spent like too much I spent a lot of time like complaining about Rareware and like their declining quality and like other games they made and like the history of the IP and stuff like that. Not the game itself. I don't know. It's just I don't know. Like this is like the beginning of my love for Nintendo, so I guess it kind of makes sense to like talk about all these elements that kind of make this game work. And I suppose that's something that like a lot of people don't realize is that like you have to like build up to a game like this. You don't just put it out. You have to have like you have to establish the characters. You have to get a team together. You have to like uh, settle on a vibe. You have to put in the work. Like the actual development time for this game was not that long. Like probably less than a year. But um like the original Donkey Kong came out in 1981, right? Like Nintendo and Rareware had been like steadily building up their business in that amount of time, and by this point in 1994, they were able to put out something like this because they had so much talent and so much passion for what they were doing. It's yeah, it was a long road to get here, but they put out like most one of the best 2D platformers of all time. Yeah, even watching the footage, I'm just kind of like, ugh, really? This is what this is Poison Pond. It's such a long, boring level. It's such a slog. Come on, Diddy, get the DK barrel on the end. I I wonder what like most people think about this level because I feel like my hatred of it is kind of is kind of unique to me because I think it really does just stem from me like having problems with it when I was like playing through the game like casually. Like I was just trying to get through the game and then like I get filtered by this level and I had to spend like 5 lives to get through it. It's just it's annoying. It just became that level that I complain about to people. It's just it's not even that bad, which is like the reason I'm kind of like pointing this out. Like, is it as bad as I'm saying? Is I really don't think it is, but like objectively speaking, but I just personally don't like it. Oh yeah, this is another level I personally don't like, even though it's like probably not bad. Yeah, the first minecart level in Donkey Kong Country is an all-time classic. It's one of like the best platforming levels of all time. I love the game. I think I love the stage. It's like one of my all-time favorites. I replayed it like endless times as a kid. When I got to this, I was incredibly disappointed because like it's not the same thing at all. Like this is an example of them taking something like a gimmick that they established earlier and just kind of doing something completely different with it. In this case, they're having you jump out of the minecart. And like it's oh man, I do that every time. That pisses me off. I've been doing that every single playthrough for like the past several times. Okay, so okay. So it almost feels like dying and like restarting from the checkpoint is a standard for me at this point. Yeah, so this stage, all you do is jump out of the minecart. And like it's nowhere near as interesting or fun as like the original. Like, yeah, you're jumping from the minecart into a new one, but it's just like, so what? Like what I would have done hypothetically is just like map the buttons. Like have a jump button for like jumping with the minecart and having one jump one without it. But I don't know. I think that was too complicated for the time, and I think it probably would have ruined the first stage. So it's just like, whatever. Like I think Donkey Kong Country Returns has like better versions of this stage, but like I am I am a big critic of this one. It's just so boring. Like it doesn't do anything with its concept. Like all you're doing is just jumping into like different minecarts, and like if you jump too much, you're gonna fucking die. So it's just unbelievably lame. Yeah, and yeah, I feel like this is the most reused gimmick in the entire game. Like the blackout feature, where where you have a handful of levels where like the screen just is just dark for some reason and you can't see where you're going. And it felt like they wanted this gimmick to work because they have like 2 or 3 stages that are like this. Like Torchlight Trouble is one. I think there's another factory stage like this, and then there's this where it's like completely black, and it's just like okay, like really, it's just this is probably the best version of it because like it actually does it act it actually does cause you to like stop and like think about what you're doing, but for the most part like it's one of those gimmicks that's just like okay, like I think once is enough really. Like I would have like just used this stage and then like just cut all the others. It just feels like the others were just not all that great really. I like I said, it really does feel like they reuse some of their concepts near the end, and not all of them work very well. I would say most of them don't work, honestly. But like by the time like you get to the reused content, like the game is almost over, honestly. So like you honestly, a first time player probably wouldn't even notice it. Like the reused backgrounds, like the reused concepts, ideas. It's just like oh, it's just something that's similar to what we've seen before. It's not like it's not like they think about like oh man, the developers got a little bit lazy. I don't know. Like I imagine most players never got this far. So like I wonder how much people actually played this game like when it first came out because I've heard that like it's not all that long and it's not all that difficult, but like I have seen people who like play the first couple of worlds, enjoy it, but then just kind of never finish it. I myself was like that for a really long time. So I'm curious how common that is. Like there are people who like grew up with this game and played it, but never 100% finished it. So which is kind of weird for me to think about. I think. Oh, I this boss is so generic. Look at this. This is like peak lazy video game design. Oh, we're just gonna throw minor enemies at you, and it's just. Ugh. I don't know why they did it this way, but like they probably ran out of dev time or couldn't come up with any good ideas because this is just. Ugh. This is just unbelievably lazy. I don't want to call this the worst boss in the game, but it probably is. Like one of the things you'll notice about 2 immediately, the sequel to this, is that like it actually objectively does have like far superior boss fights. Like they have better designs, they have better patterns, they have like more interesting locations, they have better they have better they're more fun to fight, they're more engaging. Like I would say like the maybe the final boss of this game is better than the final boss of 2, but like generally speaking, I would say the bosses in 2 are way superior. Oh man, I hate this. The fuel track. Yeah, I hate this gimmick. It's just one of those things where you're just like, really? You have to stop for gas? Like, really? Like, oh man. Gas in Donkey Kong Country must be like nothing because because like they're just leaving all these gas barrels just lying around. I mean, maybe it's not very much gas. How much gas is that thing taking? Because, like, you're putting in an entire gallon of it, like, that entire barrel, and it doesn't move for, like, more than 10 seconds. So it's like, that has, like, the worst fuel mileage I've ever seen in my life. Okay, yeah, again, this is part of the reason why I don't like the stage. It's just, yeah, you just have to keep the thing moving, and it's, like, really boring. And then you have this really weird fake-out moment where, like, you can't get that barrel, but then like you realize you can just jump out. Like it's stuff like that that makes me hate the stage. It's just like, really, that's what you came up with. Yeah, in general, I don't like stages in this game where you stand on these platforms because um, I feel like the strength of the game's platforming is like while you're in motion. So like standing still and just like waiting for things to happen doesn't suit the game design at all. Like I hate like Donkey Kong Country 3's squeals on wheels for that reason. I I've talked so much shit about squeals on wheels in the future in the past. Like I think it baffles some people, but like squeals on wheels is like legit probably my most hated Donkey Kong Country level either. I hate that shit. That is just like so much worse than this. Like every time I play it, I'm just like, what were they thinking? Like really? Yeah, it's been a while since I played 3, so I think after I'm done with my retrospectives of 1 and 2, I think I am gonna go back and 100% it. It's been, I haven't 100%ed it ever, so 3 is definitely one of those games that's on my list. But yeah, I haven't gotten around to doing it yet. Personally, I'm more interested in finishing some of my books right now. Honestly, in general, I think I'm cutting back on games. Like, I'm skipping some major Nintendo releases. I'm focusing more on like Splatoon 3, manga, and personal projects. So like, I do want to put out more retrospectives, more edited content. I want to like do more stuff. I I don't know. Like, again, it's like what I said earlier. Like, I just don't think modern games are worth like investing in. Like, I not the money because I have plenty of that. It's the time. Like, I don't have time to play everything that comes out and to like to call Resident Evil 8 shit or whatever. Like, I'm not interested in like playing all the stuff that comes out. All right. Oh wow, I think this is like one of those embarrassing moments. Like, really? What was I thinking? So I lose Diddy, lose Rambi like twice, and then like lose him in the end. That is like one of those things where I was just like, really? Things like that happen in games like this sometimes, and it's always like it always makes you laugh just how badly you can mess up. Like I didn't lose or anything, but the fact that that happened is just embarrassing. Yeah, this is probably one of the better stages in Ship Caverns. It has like lots of interesting obstacles. It makes great use of its gimmicks. There's this really weird thing here where like you go in this cave and if you get hit by the pincers, you just leave. Like it treats it like it's a bonus room when I don't think it can be considered one, but like whatever. Oops. Yeah, I didn't make that jump. Embarrassing. Get back here, Diddy. Yeah, that's probably one of the better levels in the second half of the game. I do like that one a lot. Uh, yeah, this is another reason I hate boss dumb drum. Cause like it's like this stage existed was designed with like boss dumb drum in mind. Like the boss has already been beaten, but like here you are like fighting smaller versions of it. That's unbelievably lame. Like in Yoshi's Island did the opposite, where it had you like fight enemies that you fight bosses of enemies that you had been encountering up to that point, which makes sense structurally, but this does the opposite and it just doesn't work. Like I'm not a fan of this level at all. It's just like, wow, you fight a bunch of snakes. Now I love the snakes in this game. I actually love like all the enemy designs, but like, yeah, just throwing enemies at you like endlessly, it's not an interesting design choice. I think they could have done something interesting with it, but like the way the stage is laid out, it's just like no. Ugh. Are snakes the only enemy that come out of those things? No, you have beavers. Yeah, beavers and snakes. Like, do the snakes eat the beavers? Oh no, you have claptraps. Okay. Like, how exactly those things work? How many of those things are in there? Like, it just raises all these questions, and like they're just kind of randomly there, and like because of the way they're arc, you can just run by them. I don't know how you would ever be threatened by these things. It's just. Like I think Donkey Kong Country 2 has like something similar that has like enemies kind of spawning, but like I think it handled that a lot better. I think they're like flying in that situation. Well, we'll have to like see. I don't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, I think in general like the enemies in 2 are a lot better. In general, 2 is like a big improvement over this. So like if you get through this, like you definitely want to play 2. Like that's what I tell everyone. Like definitely play 2. Oh yeah, this is the third blackout stage. Okay, so I thought like this, I thought the other one was a factory stage, but like yeah, it's Torchlight Trouble, blackout basement, and this one is like unbelievably lame. like Torchlight Trouble is probably the worst because it's so short, but this one is like probably has the worst gimmick because you're just like flipping the lights back on. It's just like really that's what they came up with, and it's like it's not even like pitch black or anything, so you can always find like the next light switch. It's just it's just one of those gimmicks where like again they were experimenting with this blackout feature, and it doesn't really work in 2 of the 3 stages they put it in. Like it's just like really, this is what I have to do to win. Okay, I didn't even hit the like there. Look, I just I just didn't even bother with the gimmick. I was just like, yeah, it's not worth my time. Oh wow. Yeah, Caverns in general just feels like a lot of half-ass levels that were probably just thrown in there, um, just to like pad it out a little bit, which I suppose is like fine, but like for a hardcore fan like me, it's worth noticing. It's worth noting that like these levels aren't as good as what came before. Yeah, I was really anxious to get this over with, honestly, while I was playing this. I was making a lot of obvious mistakes. I think this has to be one of the most like universally beloved on games on Super Nintendo, and for a good reason. It just holds up really well. Like when I say these stages are bad, I'm just kind of nitpicking. I really am. It's nothing really to complain about. All right, it doesn't like ruin the experience or anything. Here we go. Oh man, that claptrap tried to take one last chomp at me. All right, here we go. The last stage in the game, platform barrels. Yep, that's right. Yeah, this stage is interesting to me. I don't think this stage is bad, really. Like my issue with it is that like it's the last stage in the game. Like this is what they went with for the last stage. Like whenever you think of like a last stage in a video game, you think of like some crazy climactic stuff, and you get that with the boss fight. The boss fight is really good, but like this stage just feels like another gimmick stage. Like it really does just feel like another level in a lot of ways. And they try like throwing some weird curveballs at you, but like, and this is how they decided to end it. It's just, I don't know. Like Super Mario World has that castle at the end with like the multiple routes and stuff like that. Like I would have, they could have done something really nice, really awesome like that. But like no, like none of the. I don't think any of the Donkey Kong Country games have like really good final levels. Like typically they just have like standard stages be the last one. Like the last stage in two is a race with Squawks where you're like racing like his his evil counterpart. I almost said black, but that would be racist. I I'm like okay, they could have done all sorts of things with this. There's so many things they could have done, but that's what they came up with is like a race. And like this is kind of the same way. Like you're just navigating these platforms. Like the only interesting thing about this is that like sometimes the platforms go in weird directions, and you have to deal with like awkwardly placed enemies. That's it. Now it's not a bad stage, by any means. Like its gimmick is a lot more interesting than you would think at first glance. It looks really basic, but like yeah, you can see here how like they sometimes go backwards, which you don't really see in these kind of games very much. And you have to like deal with enemies, which is honestly the best enemy usage I think I've seen in the game, other than like zingers and like flying stuff. Uh, this is it's not a bad stage at all, but like yeah, the last stage in the game, like you get like two more boss fights after this, and that's it, and that's just kind of weird. Yeah, check it out, Neki. Neki has a palette swap. I called him like Neki Senior earlier. I'm not sure if that's accurate. We'll have to look at the character credits to see like just what this thing is, like what the deep lore is on this animal. And again, this thing is just gimmicky as all out. You just hit him, he just spits out like more coconuts every time, and like you just have to dodge them. Which, like look at that, I just got hit, and I just countered him. Like again, I've done these bosses so many times. It's really difficult for me to like die on them. It's just ugh. That's especially evident with K. Rool, because like I would call K. Rool a difficult boss, because like I've seen people struggle with him. I remember struggling with him as a kid, but like as an adult who like knows his patterns, it's like incredibly simple to like to beat him. I don't even like really mess up now. Like I don't even think I got hit in this footage. So yeah, this fight is like actually really good. Like you get like this massive boss fight like that takes significantly longer to get through than any other fight in the game. You get this like interesting location. You get like all this stuff, and you can see the island in the background. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, this is like a legitimately really good final boss. Probably one of the best on Super Nintendo. I don't think a lot of other Nintendo produced games can really compete with Rareware's final bosses. Like Super Metroid, I love the final boss of Super Metroid, but it's not like that's a thematic climax for like the entire trilogy up to that point. It's not like really a great boss fight in its own right. Like the game is basically over after you beat Ridley, to be honest with you. Like Super Mario World, I love that fight, but it's not as good as this. Link to the Past, not as good as this, I would say. I've had like a Link to the Past. Oh, okay, here we go. Kidney was seething so hard when this happened, because like I honestly thought I beat the game, and I was like looking at this, and I'm just like, wait a minute, these aren't. Are these nicknames? Are this a real credit scheme? But I thought this was setting up for a sequel, and then, oh no, you get fucking jumped. Oh no! Yeah, so I actually like gave up when that happened the first time, because like I barely beat the first phase, and then I had to deal with this shit. So I thought it would go on for like forever, honestly. So I just ended up giving up. So yeah, I did come back to it later, and I mastered it, but because it's really not that bad, like phase two. Like I'd say the hardest part is like the cannonballs, but yeah, there we go, we beat the game. Like, damn, yeah, even just watching footage, it's a lot of fun. You know, like you can share stories, you can talk about it, you can like share memories. Like there's so much to talk about when it comes to this game, and I suppose like other Nintendo classics, it's remarkable just how much there is to do and say about these games. If I had been playing, I'd have found everything. Well, I don't like 100% in the game, Cranky. Yeah, one of the things that always confused me is like Cranky Kong's role in this game because I don't. He doesn't give you good advice. Like he basically just tells you like some useless stuff about the stages. Like, oh man, if you want extra lives, go back to Jungle Hijinks. I think that's the only good thing he's ever told me is like to do that because I used to do that all the time as a kid. All right, the bad guys, naughty. Yeah, Neki. Yeah, yeah. So that's a Neki, and then like you have the big Nekis, Army. Yeah, Zingers. Slippa. Okay. I really gotta start memorizing all these names. I have most of them, but like Slippa is not one I use. Mini Neki. Okay. So there's Mini Neki, there's Neki, and then there's like Neki Senior. The aquatic bad guys. Yeah, Bite Size, Croctopus. Yeah, this is definitely something I miss in modern games. It's just it's just going through all these like all the characters, so you learn their names and know some more about them. Like I suppose in something like Odyssey, it's not practical considering. uh, oh man, that's charming. In something like Odyssey, it's not really possible considering how big the game is. But I don't know. You really do. I really do like sitting back and reflecting on all the stuff like you saw on your adventure. I really like that a lot. I really wonder when the trend stops. I I don't know. Paper Mario did it. I know. The Paper Mario games used to do it. I don't know. It feels like it was a trend that died out by the end of the N64 days, and that's kind of a shame, honestly. I I really love Master Neki. Okay. I really liked it when games did that. I don't know. I really should go back and like see what N64 games do this because there are a couple, but like I think the trend was already dying down by that phase, which is disappointing. On guard, it's Winky. Yeah, I love Winky's design. I've always have, but yeah, Winky just is a useless character, and like I don't think ever reappears in any Donkey Kong game ever. Like there are times where you see like a lot of where like they introduce characters that never really appear in anything else. Like, for example, in 64 we get like that giant guy. In 3 we get Ellie the elephant, who was like really heavily shilled at the time. Like Ellie the elephant has like several stages dedicated to her in 3. So like if you play 3 and fall in love with Ellie the elephant, you're never gonna see her again. Like she's never coming back. Um, I mean I'm not a fan of Ellie myself. I think she's like the absolute worst. Like I hate Winky for not having a powers or abilities. I hate like Ellie just taking over from like every other animal buddy. Like this game, all the animal buddies are generally pretty like evenly spaced out. Ellie gets like several stages to herself. She gets like a boss fight. She has all these crazy powers. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I still haven't been able to beat the game in less than an hour. I'm getting to that point where I can do it, but yeah, it's gonna take a lot of practice. I don't know if I want to get into speedrunning this because of the game's content, because of the way I like to play it. I think it might actually be like entertaining for me to get into speedrunning. I don't know, like I have been playing it a lot. I have been like getting better at it. It might be fun for me to try it, honestly. I've been wanting to like get into speedrunning for a while. It's just one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, do I really want to spend the time to do this when I have like so many other hobbies and like things I have going on? It's just I don't know. I've been having this problem with just picking up like hobbies that I can't possibly keep up with lately. So I do think it's not something I should be trying, but it has been something I've been thinking about. And like if there was a game I wanted to speed run, yeah, it'd be Donkey Kong Country. It'd be like A Link to the Past. It'd be like some Super Nintendo game because I love this stuff. It really is like gonna be like relevant to me for the rest of my life. I enjoy this a lot. Oops, my screen went dark. Yeah, these credits. Yeah, the Switch does this thing where it just goes dark after if you don't touch the controller for a bit. So, all right, yeah, so that's Donkey Kong Country. One of the best games on Super Nintendo, one of my favorite games of all time. It's one that I would recommend to essentially anyone. If you love video games, you owe it to yourself to play Donkey Kong Country.